alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim tasliman. Good afternoon, everyone. We're glad today to moderate this panel where we have Dr. Shaykh who will be the first speaker, and Mr. Lamin Bake, who is also a specialist in finance as well. I think that the topic we have to cover today is related to entrepreneurship, financing, growth, and development in the Murid community, as they said. As you know, entrepreneurship, we have a lot of people and young people in our community, and entrepreneurship helps to unlock the power of individuals to create and grow their business ideas into successful companies. And for this, they need to have to invest in the long term, right? And when you invest in the long term, you have to deploy your capital to create greater and broader economic values, as opposed to merely to extraction of resources. And you have also to invest in strategic sectors to make sure that you get a good financial return. So today we discuss this topic and Dr. Shaykh will be the first speaker. I will just let him introduce himself, and after Mr. Lamin Bake will take the floor, and at the end I will maybe add some contribution. Thank you so much. Dr. Shaykh, you have the floor.
Doctor, you have to unmute.
Bluetooth mode.
Dr. Shaykh, you have to unmute.
Dr. Shaykh, you have the floor.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to attend this meeting and to give some contribution. Do you hear me well? Do you hear me? Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yes, go ahead, doctor.
Okay. I just want to give some piece about an analysis on globalization, and to say that it's time for Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba. At a time when the world has never been so rich and technologically advanced, vulnerability and inequalities are gaining ground on all continents, as somebody called Piketty showed it in 2013. Hunger has reached unprecedented levels, with 820 million people now suffering from chronic hunger, and 25,000 people dying of hunger or undernourishment per day. In this global village, where human rights from the spirit of the Enlightenment are so easily summoned to give lessons in humanism and conscience, how can one live such a shocking paradox? The paradox of an economic system that is both hyper-productivist and a generator of poverty has long been denounced. It produced a destruction of the environment and the means of production in the countries of the South, subjected to the satisfaction of the needs of the markets of the North, in an endless reproduction of the extractivist slavery, colonial and neo-colonial system. Ecological and social balances are thus now being called into question in the countries of the South, whose desperate peoples are suffering from the accelerated decay of agriculture, fishing, and other traditional means of production. Beyond the crisis factors specific to the activity and to the internal concerns of the countries, they are victims of the organization of a global system of exchange that introduced them into free trade, a veritable economic slavery supported by the countries of the North and their multinationals. The World Trade Organization is based on this principle, which is considered to be a virtue, even so it is the keystone of the system of domination. Indeed, how can small farmers, fishermen, or traders from the South compete with multinationals that can have the economic and financial weight of entire states or region? The supreme paradox is that the countries of the South that are the victims of this system has signed it while suffering the awful consequences. This reveals the lack of proper thinking and the courage to assume any economic independence. The hegemonic mode of production and its proponents emit the dominant values in a society, a country, or on a global scale. Capitalism works towards the loosening of ties, affiliations, individuation, the devaluation of local and singular cultures, and sets up material well-being as a supreme ideal. This strategy is a stronger mechanism of impoverishment than economic impoverishment. Islam in general and Muridism in particular are in this respect remedies against this disease of societies and individuals and a solution for the rebirth of a capitalist world in finitude, noting its own limits and contradictions. The COVID-19 epidemic is an analyzer of the multifaceted crisis facing humanity and the planet that Allah has entrusted to it. For decades, the alarms and questions of philosophers, environmentalists, religious leaders, and all categories of scientists have set the pace of a world marked by accumulative competition, extractivism, and egoism that create an unequal society. All turn towards pleasure, enjoyment, and profit. Yet our Lord had warned men about the meaning of their existence on earth through revelations and incessant reminders in his infinite mercy. In the Al-Quran, God reports this account about the first man, Adam. And when your Lord said to the angels, I'm going to put a Khalifa on the earth, the angels said, are you going to put on the earth those who will sow evil and shed blood? While we proclaim your purity with your praises and glorify you. This epidemic reveals more than ever the fragility of mankind in the face of natural or industrial biological threats that they have created for themselves in the hedonistic race towards wealth and comfort. The privatization of public goods and service and the financialization of the economy are accentuating social fractures and inequalities in the face of disease and epidemics at a time when health systems were built without taking into account the predicted advent of epidemics and pandemics. Indeed, these pandemics demonstrate the strong interweaving of the flows of people, goods, and disease vectors, as well as the articulation of the chains of values at the global level. On the other hand, the reactions of some countries are marked by individualism, loss of collective meaning, and withdrawal into oneself, temporary travel bans, lockdowns, border closures, etc., and represent obstacles to a solidarity-based approach to the pandemic for the benefit of all humanity. The parallelism between, on the one hand, the decline of religious and spirituality in some societies, and on the other hand, the deficit of altruism and solidarity is established. According to the Quran, pious goodness does not consist in turning your faces towards the east or the west, but pious goodness is to believe in Allah, the last day, the angels, the book, and the prophets, to give of one's property, no matter how much one loves it, relatives, orphanage, the needy, destitute travelers, and those who ask to help, and to loosen the yokes, to perform salat and to pay zakat, and those who fulfill their commitments when they are committed, those who endure misery, sickness, and when the fighting rages, they are the true and pious ones. This crisis has reached such a depth that it indicates to human beings a reflection of the meaning of creation, of their life on earth and with the fellow human beings. The metaphysical and spiritual dimensions that offer a grid for reading its origin and its implications. Ethical and responsible management of the world is therefore synonymous for mankind with rights on earth, but also at the same time with duties towards other men as a living beings and the whole of creation. If the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic is not the end of the world, it will certainly be the end of a world that in blissful optimism and within the framework of a universalist religion has favored individualism and selfishness. The theory of economic development, the fruit of thinking based on a quantifying rationality, inherited from the evolution of bourgeois society after its takeover in the last 2 centuries in Europe, are significant. They have also thrived in a context of conceptual hegemony of an empire with its guru and affidavits, as well as in engineering of financial deregulation. This crisis is, in Antonio Gramsci's sense, makes this pandemic an opportunity to think about this new world, to come by taking a historical and philosophical step back, in which the Islamic and Sufi teachings of Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba can promote a return to the essence of existence and life on earth. His vision of the world, in which the search for the true happiness in the world and beyond is interrelated and defines the Murid work ethic. The purpose of the Dharam and Garam the purpose of the Dharam is the Garam. Under this civilizational ontology, Muridism invites an adjustment to Islamic values and their quest for a collective and beneficial destiny for the family, relatives, humans, and their environment. To speak of the cultural and economic principles of Muridism is to take an analytical approach to separate the components of the same whole for the purpose of conceptual elucidation as well for the identification of meaning and functions. In the global context of the dissolution of reflection and on the individual and collective meaning of life on Earth in the midst of a pandemic, COVID-19 has recalled the deep systemic and spiritual crisis that the world is experiencing. We invite and call upon ourselves to rethink a new stage of humanity by taking a historical and philosophical step back from the past, in which the Islamic and Sufi teachings of Shaykh Hadim can promote a return to the essence of existence. Under such a conception of human well-being and fulfillment is today well in line with certain socio-economic theories of development based for the most part on an analysis of the crisis of globalization, which tends to settle down and lead to the questioning of the economic medications that have been implemented until now. These come from another era and from historical and social contexts marked by the unbridled search for profit and competition over material goods are now obsolete. An extraordinary synthesis between carnal and material detachment on the one hand, and the attachment into the integral well-being of man on the other, such is the ideal of Muridism. This is well known. The complexity lies, however, in the characterization of the process that led to the establishment of this mood from apparently irreconcilable components, matter and spirit. All philosophical debates that have gone on through the history of mankind. Only here it is a reflection on Murid philosophy, on the intersection between spirituality and materiality, on faith and commitment in what Marxists call the process of production. Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba, founder of Muridism, sought, found, initiated, and practiced Sufism. Sufism installed it at the confluence of spiritual elevation and qualitative transformation of the human living environment. An important lesson and a path for the world, for Africa, and for Senegal. As a poor and in-depth country, Senegal needs, as has been the case under other skies, to formulate an indigenous strategy for overcoming the crisis and achieving real growth in all areas. Muridism, a Muslim religious brotherhood strongly marked by local customs and habits, offer original and effective solutions. Attachment to spirituality, observance of the principles of tolerance, respect and openness, unrestrained involvement in the lawful activity of production, sacralization of good governance, generosity and charity. Some principles carried and embodied by Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba have remained until now the foundation on which this brotherhood is based. We must find the words to say it, the lexicon to explain it, the intonation to make ourselves heard, the subtlety to make ourselves understood, and the strategy to impact behaviors as well as individual and collective practices. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shaykh. We thank you so much for just delivering this speech. And to summarize it a little bit, Dr. Shagay talked about the fact that the system is unfair right now. You have countries in the north and in the south where you have big differences in terms of economy, and you have most of the poor countries in the south, and they struggle to sell their product in the north, and most of the time countries in the north are deciding and are setting the prices. So Dr. Shaki explains that Islam and Muridia can be a solution. And now after this crisis of the COVID-19, if we hear what he said, we have to change the things that the way of doing things. And because in this world right now we have a decline of spirituality and a deficit of altruism, but the teaching of Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba can be a solution. And we have to see how we can help African countries to get resilience after this crisis of COVID-19. Now I think we can give the floor to Mr. Lamin Bake to introduce himself and to present his work. Mr. Bake, you have the floor.
Okay, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. سيدنا مولانا محمد المكي وعلى آله وصحبه ذوي الرضوان والتمكين. Thank you very much, Mr. Issa Gay, and thanks Dr. Shaykh Gay for this brilliant expose, and thanks also to Sidi and all the people who put that together. And bring my salutation to Shaykh Muhammad al-Muntaqa and my praise for him, that Allah allows him to achieve his mission, and also to Sering Mamor, who is presiding over this event for the past years. Just to tell you a little bit about my background in 30 seconds. For my studies, I had a master's degree in mathematics in France in 1992, and American European management degree in Lyon in France also in 1993. I then went to the United States and had an MBA at Old Dominion University in Virginia in 1995. Also, I had a degree in Islamic Economics and Finance from Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance. This is in 2011. After I finished my studies in the US, I worked a few years for Saks Fifth Avenue, about 4 years, as a buyer, and landing in Citibank as a deputy director. And quickly, after in Citibank, I discovered Islamic finance and founded the African Institute of Islamic Finance, which I'm the chairman and managing director today. Just to jump quickly in the subject, because I think we have about 5 minutes, 7 minutes, if I'm not wrong, Sidi. So I'm just going to put some slides. So hold on 1 second. I don't know if you can see my slides.
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Oh, you can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Let me see. Okay. Okay, I got it. Okay, so I'm just following on Dr. Shaykh Gay's presentation regarding the failure of conventional economic systems and models, and the lack of ethics in dealings and transactions, leading to the financial crisis, back-to-back 2008 financial crisis, and now with the COVID-19, a lot of mishaps. And also his wish that maybe religion is a savior to bring an Islam and an economic model where ethics are present. So here I will present Muridonomics, Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba's approach of Islamic economics and finance. I think a lot of literature has been made on Murid, the success of Murids for half a century or close to a century. but with different approach, with a sociological approach, anthropological approach, political approach, economic approach. Now, the originality of the presentation I'm going to make is the approach here will be from Islamic economics and finance, and you will see why we think it fits more than the others. So I call that Muridonomics, which is derived from Murid Economics, which I had the opportunity to present the first time in Bamba Day 2017, which is actually a book I'm writing right now with the International University, which is expected to be published, inshallah, in May or June 2021. So I call that Muridonomics, the doctrine of economics taught and practiced by Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba in the Islamic Murid Brotherhood he founded. By the way, earlier discussions show that the brotherhood is not a closed brotherhood. Actually, Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba he calls himself Khadim Rasul, the servant of the prophets. I quote here Michel Kimball's book on Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba, Peacemaker of Our Time, presented at Islamic University of Malaysia. But the Sheikh calls himself a Mujaddid that initiated an ideal Islamic society where his disciples should be good Muslims who would aspire to be like the Sahabas of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So this is very important here to make the distinction that this is not the close brotherhood, but a Murid actually is a Muslim that is striving to mirror the behaviors of the Sahabas. So basically he's a Mujaddid who is trying to implement a perfect Islamic society. Now the Murid success stories in the economy have been, since the beginning of the century, has been the object of extensive scholarly studies for almost a century. I mean, there's a lot of books about the cash crop peanuts economy in Senegal, which was dominated by the Murids, the city-dwelling traders across the world, and nowadays in the commerce and industrial manufacturing sectors, and even in new technologies. I can quote here Donald Cruz O'Brien, who wrote a lot about the Murids, Jean Copin, who wrote Les Marabouts de la Rachid, who was a well-known fellow for Dr. Chargay, Abdullah Awad, who wrote about the economic doctrine of the Murids, Philippe Coty, Gerard Selman, Charanta Babu, and tremendous PhD studies in Western universities across the world. I remember when I was a student in France, I read a lot of master's thesis about the Murids, you know, in economy. But the bottom line here is almost all scholars agree on the above average success of the Murids in economy. And they agree also that it is linked to the sanctifying virtue of work in Murid ethics. So the Murid ethics counts a lot for their success. Scholars inside and outside the Murid community also agree that work ethics are at the center of Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba's teachings, as to there should be no separation between worldly action in relations to afterlife, which is actually the vision of Islam, because the perfect Muslim doesn't have only worldly action. All worldly action should bear in them an afterlife consequence. So in one of the Sheikh's masterpiece writings called Matlab al-Fawzaini, where the Sheikh defines and praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for an ideal Islamic society centering his holy city of Tuba, all his prayers show that worldly activities are to be done for Allah's sake only, while bearing on them the objective of ibadah and also taking account the hereafter. So the Sheikh's writings work is referred to in terms as Hamal, Kasbul Halal, Khidma. So this is, the news here is to tell the people that Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba's mission was a Mujaddid, to revive Islam, to work, live Islam in its plenty, in its entirety. But the success of that showed the success of economic behaviors of Murids, of their political influence in power, of their non-violence and others, even though it was not the primary purpose. But what I want to show here is that success and that ethical behavior in economy has its foundations in Islamic economy. So in other words, the Sheikh as a Mujaddid would be presented here as somebody who understands Islam better than anybody else, but also who practiced and who gave it a community, a social signature. I mean, where a lot of, like in Tasawwuf, where a lot of things were dedicated to elites, he made it a mass teaching, among the people. So Murid economics mirror Islamic economics, which has a holistic approach, offering integral spiritual view based on teaching of the Quran and Sunnah, providing a better alternative philosophical framework for man's interaction with nature and his fellow. Okay, this is to explain that you have two things in Islam. You have the ibadat, which is the vertical approach, where man deals with God, and you have the horizontal, which deals with the relation of man to his other fellow man. I'm going to show you quickly. I'm not sure if you're seeing my slides, but this is the definition of Islam. In Islam, you have Aqidah, which is the dogma, the belief that Allah exists, the books, the angels, and everything. But then you have the fiqh, which is called Islam, which is the law. I mean, like the civil law. And you have the akhlaq, which is tasawwuf, which is spiritual perfection. If you go into fiqh, you will find the ibadat, which is a vertical relation, and you go to muamalat, the horizontal relationship. The relationship between man and his fellow man, man and animals, man and nature, man and an environment. And that's where you find economics. So this is to say that now this is a quick about the difference between conventional economy and Islamic economics. Conventional economics takes its basis from reason, from empirical evidence, from experience. And even in conventional economics, I mean, you could trace, for example, if you do research, a lot of theories from John Maynard Keynes and a lot of Western liberal or Marxist economists or Malthusian economists, you could trace it to Ibn Khaldun, like 300 years before, who was a Muslim, who was a big Muslim scholar. So in conventional economics, the theoretical foundation man uses to address or solution a problem. Okay, sorry about that. Are based on modern scientific secular conception of the world, which is restricted in reason and sensible experience. It disregards Allah's lordship, sovereignty, power, and control with and will to the universe. Islamic economy, which has a holistic approach, comes from Quran, Sunnah, and the other sources, the following sources, offering an integral spiritual view based on the teaching of the Quran and Sunnah, providing a better alternative and philosophical framework for man's interaction with nature. So in the Shaykh's teachings, spiritual motives driving economic behavior were the muamalats, which is a horizontal relation between man and his environment, have the same relevance as the ibadat in driving Murid disciples to work ethics and excellence in succeeding economically. I think you read this in a lot of theories where they tell you that in Murids, working is worshipping. And this is actually the way Islamic sees it. And this is interesting. So we don't have time to develop in the book. The economic foundations are what they call the Tawhidic paradigm. The Tawhidic paradigm is the oneness of God, which boils down to thinking that if you're a true Muslim, like you say your Shahada, everything you do, every transaction you do, is present. And the other, I think Dr. Shahgay mentioned that is a theory of Khilafah, which is man is a representative of God on earth and has the duty to develop the world in accordance with Allah's recommendation. So basically, the Murid economics will show you that besides those foundations of Islamic economy, there's a lot of other virtues, which I will not have time to develop here, which is noble dignity of man, because man, according to the Quran, God has infused So man should live at his highest level. You have the theory of ikhtiyar. God will not change the situation people they themselves try to change it. You have the equality of all creatures, all human beings beyond God, unless the one who worships better. You have the universal brotherhood of humans. It's like in the Quran it says that if you kill some people, it's like you killed the whole humanity. You have the trust and responsibility, which comes a lot in the Quran. You have the justice, which comes so many times in Islam, which are the basis of Islamic economy and finance. So beside the theory, the Sheikh practiced. I think compared to other Abdul Khadir Jailani, Shaykh Ahmad Tijani and others, the Sheikh was more successful in building his theory into practice. Even though his view was broader, because the Murids are not named after his name, but they any Muslim, anybody who tried to be a Muslim like the Sahabas is a Murid. So he put that in practice. And his first disciples are the examples of Mamcharno Ibrahim Afat, his lieutenant, who was at his time the most important farmer, who cultivated a surface of like 1,600 square kilometers, over 50 villages created. You know, you have Mam Shahanta, who was the most successful businessman in commerce. I think one time he became the richest in the French-dominated West Africa region. That was the time of the Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba. You have Sheikh Mandombe, was a big agriculture. You have Sheikh Ibrahim, who did great things in Khidma. This is in the past. If you go to a more recent time, you could quote like Khalkom, Sheikh Salihu Mbaki, which is I think 45,000 square kilometers. No, actually 45,000 hectares. I don't know how to say that in English. Which is terrific. And he started that at the age of 75, where he was Khalif of the Murids. So where, I mean, in terms of, if you look at in terms of having money or everything, he had everything else. But it's the philosophy behind building things. Now you could go to University of Tuba, you could go to Al-Azhar universities, which started from 1 or 2 schools and now which has a university and high schools and then a lot of centers. You could talk about a lot of things in the diaspora. You could talk about Murids building infrastructure. I think somebody mentioned it in the time of Shah Ahmad Mustafa, where they needed to build the railways to be able to bring the materials to make the mosque. You have more recently like Tuba Chekanam, which was like a, great initiative started by a grandson of Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba, saying that every Murid can put $2 every month and we could do things for the city of Tuba, which is now building infrastructures, making a lot of stuff. And I think I was talking to the panel about new technologies and telling them you could perfect, because this is a great crowdfunding model, you could perfect and put appropriate platforms to make that happen. And also there's a lot of new projects on the table, like mosques, hospitals, education centers, and even like I'm approached many times, why shouldn't we set up an investment fund, a Murid investment fund, just dedicated for the big infrastructures? And also the major project actually right now is the Tuba University, where I think would be a driver, for all the things happening. Okay, so I wanted to keep it short because I know he gave me 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mr. Mohammed Lamin Bake, right, for your presentation. It was a bright presentation about Murid Academic, and as where I would just take the floor and start adding some comments, maybe where you just end your presentation. For me, it's good to think about one thing. It's good to invest in infrastructures, and it's been many years since Serin Touba was here. We're still building infrastructures, but one thing that is very important to me is what we do with people in our community. How can we help people in our community to maybe start projects, run their projects, and to finance it by themselves? Because here in Senegal, and maybe in Africa, in all many countries, people that have problems and financing their project. I want just maybe to present some slides. So Mr. Mbake, if you can just end your presentation, right? Stop your presentation so you will give me the opportunity to just present some slides. Yes. Okay, as I was saying, so here we have some problems in helping our community or start financing projects, right? Because we have a lot of young people in our community, and many of them in Senegal, they want to start projects, but some of them they don't know, and all of them they are in dairas. When you go to daira, people are always chanting the Hasidah, sometimes, they learn there some books, Tazawwud al-Sikhar, and all other books written by the Sheikh. But what I have noticed is in all those dairas, people are not talking about entrepreneurship. And it is very important to see now how we can make things practical, and how we can help them to build their project, to write maybe good business plans, to try to find financing, and so on. Do you see my screen? I try to share my screen. Do you get it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so now the first challenge that I have noticed is the problem is to get a startup capital, right? So obtaining the necessary seed capital is a primary challenge for many of the young people, many entrepreneurs. Another problem also is obtaining a bank loan, because here banks, they ask you for a collateral, and many of them, they don't have collaterals. And few Murid entrepreneurs have a commercial bank loan, because many of them, they are still working in the informal sector, and to start their projects they used to take most of the time their savings, or they get money from their parents, what we call sometimes the business angels, from parents or from friends. So the primary challenge in our community also is for young entrepreneurs, for me, is to get the startup capital. Now, when you get the capital and you start operating your business, you have other challenges. One first thing is to obtain the necessary machinery, equipment, technology, or raw materials that you need, right? One other also challenge is the cost of land. It's very expensive. The cost of office space also, especially in Dakar. So, and some working in working from home, and sometimes as I have difficulties going and rent space, or the ways that just they merchandise their space may be also a problem. The most costly operating expensive also is the electric power. Electricity is very high in Senegal, and sometimes when I see some people have some problems, because when they become partners at the beginning they don't have problems, but when when money start coming, most of them they start having problems, and the time to resolve those disputes is just a problem itself, because it takes a long time. This is what happened in our judicial system. Corruption also is a concern in our country. Government regulation compliance, the cost of registration uh, is high, and the fact is that you have to go to many government departments sometimes to get all the permissions or requirements or licenses to start your business is also problematic. So compliance with government regulation and operating requirements once the firm is established is a concern, because you have to pay taxes, and the difficulties they first have is what kind of companies they should create, what is the legal form, what is just the right legal form of companies they should create to avoid paying taxes, a lot of taxes at the beginning. One challenge is about human resource. You may find people working for you. It's not hard because many people are unemployed. But the problem is finding a skilled labor. Skilled labor is difficult, and it is expensive, because when you want to hire skilled people, you have to pay them a lot of money, and many of them they don't have enough fund to afford paying skilled people. So in our community is they need training. I think we need to train people in business management, because many of them they don't have accountants at all. They don't have things are not well processed. If you call here commercial department in Senegal or sales department, sometimes you are shocked even the way they answer the phone. So I think we can do a lot of things in our community to help people. We have to give them assistance, right? And as you know, also there is no tax relief at all from the government. So we have to maybe see how we can influence the government in terms of lobbying, or to see how we can improve things. It will help the whole country, and the government needs also to improve the general quality of infrastructure. This is something that we have as a problem. One other challenge, and it can be a solution on which we can all work, Murid from everywhere, is to develop business incubators or startup accelerators, right? So mentoring also can be useful, and networking. As we know, some solutions now, we have many business schools in Senegal, but many of them, the programs they offer are not adequate to the needs of the company. So they should develop and incorporate entrepreneurship instructions and training, right? And train also the workforce according to the need of the private sector. It can help also to create jobs. So the need of strong intellectual property protection, it's very important to see how we can help people in our community to protect all their assets, and avoid to be copied all the time, right? To establish also alternatives to see how we can resolve those disputes into inside the community, instead of always going to the courthouse, and sometimes it takes a lot of time. What are the solutions that we can give from the Murid community? For me, I think we're raising money to build mosques, we're raising money for hospitals, for schools. It's good, but we have to start raising money to finance projects, right? So when we have young entrepreneurs, I think we have the power, and we have also the possibility to raise money in our community just to finance projects. And when we finance those projects, it may help to create jobs, and it may help people in our community to be resilient, and to be self-sufficient as well. I think also for you guys in the US, it may be good also to have a better financial management, like just I can say the case of Mika, like CD. I think CD. I was part of Mika in around 2009, and at that time we had to make a decision, right? Buying a new land, a new project, having a mosque I think the project was around 3 million, around 3 million. But finally, we dropped that project to try to renovate the house. And we know even if the house is renovated, at the end, we won't have the space that we need because the community is growing and the house is too small. So we have to make better financial decisions for our communities. This is just one example. It is also good for me to think about investing in businesses in Senegal and even in the US. Because if we have a big building and everything is used as a house, it's good. We consider it as an asset, but at the same time, may I see it a little bit as a liability because you have to spend money to, you know, take care of it. You have to spend money also when you don't have enough space to go. When you want to organize any event, you have to go and rent other places. So this is something that we should consider. I think training our people in our community is a must. And I say to many of my friends in Senegal, I would suggest that, you know, we see how we can give to young Murid that are in diaries, women and people in villages, how we can train them in many subjects, in entrepreneurship, in finance, in personal development, in all those kind of things that can help them when they study the teaching of Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba. You know, they know how to practice their religion, but at the same time, we give them all the tools to be successful business people. And you know, it may help to a lot our communities and our members. Mentoring, right? You guys, you see, you can do a lot. Even me, I need a mentor, right? So, and I know City, all the guys in the platform, you have a lot of experience, and you can help people to do so. We have also, we can develop Islamic finance, as Mr. Mbake has said. We can have investment funds, Murid investment funds. We can have a Murid investment bank as well, or Murid bank. But for me, the problem is it's easy to say, but it's to put it in place. We can do it. We try, I think, for a Murid bank in the around 1994, but we failed because the project, the guys that started, you know, at the end we didn't see any result. They collect the money from people, and after, you know, we didn't see that bank. You know, we have the same problem in the US. I was there in 2007 when we were trying to have a Murid bank, right? We collect a lot of money, no result at all, and people, they didn't get their money back. So that's things that we should avoid. So for me, all those things can be put in place. We have all the resources, we have the financial resources, we have the human resources, we have everything, but we can only succeed if we get together, try to see how all Murids, all professors in universities, Dr. Shahgay, Mr. Lamin Bake, you guys in the US and everywhere in the world, how we can get together, right, to work to help our community to grow and to be sustainable at the end of this COVID-19. But for me, one principle should be respected at the base is we should choose the right people. The right people are the people that are not coming only from Oxford or Columbia, but that are the people Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba Khadim Rasulullah, not by saying it or by just the way they dress, but the way they behave, being good Muslims, having taqwa, being, you know, people who are just concerned about one thing, is about huda, right? Hudan lil muttaqin. So if you have those right people, I think they can, you know, if we put all this effort, our effort together, we can help our community to grow and help people in our community to do good things. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to go maybe over the time, but you know, thank you for choosing us and giving our feedback on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Issa. I think it was worth it. I think this panel was added this week, and I can clearly see that it was something that we needed to have and start the discussion on how we can get into more projects that we can put online and in a very practical way. I already have close to 15 people on the other panel. The last